Assalamu alaikum. The question is, how do we know that God exists? Or in other words, does God exist? This is a very important question, and the answer is surprisingly simple and logical and scientific. Listen, now we're gonna start from the Quran. The Quran tells us in no uncertain terms, there is only one deity, one creator who created this whole universe. Quran is very clear on this. But the Quran goes further than this. In Surah Muhammad, chapter of Muhammad, verse number 19, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in the Quran, giving us direct instructions. فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. You must know, you should know with certainty that there is no deity except Allah. In other words, Allah is encouraging us in the Quran not to rely only on the Quran. Otherwise, that would be in logic what's called a circular argument, which is the Quran proving itself and so on. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, you already have enough knowledge. You, humanity in general, you already have enough knowledge, enough methods, enough logic to go search for a way to convince yourself. And there is a way that we're going to share with you, inshallah, in this segment. A very simple way, very beautiful way that every believer should constantly keep in mind, should constantly keep ready at his fingertips, that there is one creator to this universe. Listen, the argument is very simple, but we're going to introduce two simple terms so that we can simplify the way we describe this argument. Let's take a dice, a playing dice that we play with. Usually it has 6 faces. So for example, it has top face number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. Let's say I want to throw this dice and I'm expecting a number 4 to come up on top. We say that there is 1 out of 6 possibilities. In other words, the probability is 1 over 6. So the number of possibilities is 6. The probability is 1 over 6. Very simple concept. So we count how many possibilities of outcomes, right? And then we say the probability is 1 out of that many number of possibilities. Let's say I have 2 dice and I want to throw them and I expect 2 and 4. 2 and 4, right? So the question is, how many possibilities for this couple, 2, 4, what is the probability? First, we ask, what are the possibilities? Well, the possibilities are, there is 6 possibilities for the first one, and for every one of those possibilities, there is 6 on the second one. In other words, 6 times 6, right? 36 possibilities, 36 combinations. So in other words, if I'm looking for 2, 4, there is 1 out of 36, right? 36 possibilities. The probability is 1 over 36. All right. So now let's say I have 3 dice and I expect 1, 5, 6, right? This combination, 1, 5, 6. What are the number of possibilities? Number of possibilities is 216, 216, 216, right? And it's very simple to understand, 36 times 6. The probability that I will get 1, 5, 6 in this order is 1 over 216. Very simple, right? So let's say I have 4 dice. The probability of any single combination, right? Any single combination is 1 out of 1,296. You see, the probability is getting smaller, right? So the smaller the probability, the less likely this is a coincidence. So let's say I have a dice and I rig it in a certain way that I throw it, and every time I throw it, I'm more likely to get a 4, right? So it's rigged to give me always 4. Would you believe that this is chance? This is coincidence, that every time I throw it, I get a 4? Of course you won't. And this is only 6 possibilities. In other words, when you consistently get 4, right, instead of getting a random 1 out of any of the 6 faces, you will understand that this is rigged. Somebody designed it to be this way. Somebody created that dice to give you more frequently the number 4 than any other face. Well, what if I throw the dice and it always gives me number 4? Then for sure you say there's no way that this is random, this is coincidence. In other words, you are admitting that somebody rigged or designed or created this dice. Now, let's go back to the dice. Let's say I have 10 dice and I'm expecting a specific combination of numbers. The probability is 1 over the number 60 followed by 6 zeros. In other words, 60 million. 1 out of 60 million, only for 10 dice. Very simple, right? So what if we have 1,000 dice? The number grows so small, it's unbelievably unimaginable. It is 1 out of 14 followed by 777 zeros. In other words, it's so remotely unlikely that it could not happen unless I designed it that way, unless I designed the dice to be that way. All right, now let's look at a simple organism, let's say, that has 10 organism, a living organism that has 10 cells. Now, let's assume that these cells only have 6 possible ways of being created, 6 possible ways of functioning, right? So for this specific organism to exist, the probability is 1 out of 60 million, which is very, very remote. In other words, I can say with confidence that this organism was created to function that way by someone. It's very simple. So what about the human being? The human being has approximately 10 trillion. This is 12 zeros, right? 12 zeros. 10 plus 12 zeros. Cells, and they function perfectly with every human being who is ever born in general, functioning exactly the same way. In other words, repeatability. In other words, this cannot be a coincidence. There is no scientist in the world, there's no scientist in the world who does not understand the basic, at least the basic concepts of statistics. Statistics is what we're talking about, probability and possibilities. When I did my PhD, I could not have graduated unless I understood some statistics in order to prove whatever I did prove during my PhD. In other words, no scientist in the world can look at the organization and the order and the beauty and the magnificence of how all the rules in this world function so beautifully together and say this is all a coincidence. This would be absolute stupidity, absolute laughable position for any scientist to take. And in fact, the vast majority are not that stupid. The vast majority of scientists, of anyone who knows basic science, I'm talking about either social sciences, which is called humanities, or material sciences, repeatable type of experimental sciences. Those scientists know for a fact that there is a creator. And that creator must have designed this whole universe in a very consistent, very interconnected, very ordered manner for this universe to function the way we all observe this universe. This is a very simple proof. You need to keep it in mind, to remember it, and to share it with people. So if you know someone who may be in doubt that there is a God, that there is a creator to this universe, please share this segment and visit us on our channel for a lot of other segments that also share very simple, logical evidences of what God expects us to do. Thank you, and Assalamu alaikum.